The Matt's Movie Reviews channel is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favorite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. Now, I used to care. Put it bluntly, I used to care about the Oscars, not so much in that I've ever viewed the Oscar as awarding what was the best film. They've dropped the ball on so many occasions in regards to that. I didn't have any type of illusions whatsoever that was what the whole kind of ceremony was about. But when I said I used to care, I used to find it fascinating, the kind of whole process and the way that producers and studios and artists and filmmakers will try to court, votes from members of the academy, and they go out into the media and they go on about their process and how great they are, etc. I used to gobble that stuff up all the time. I used to love it, and then a few things kind of changed that for me. Um, the three things that kind of changed it for me was that number one was the whole kind of Harvey Weinstein thing. Um, a lot of people, he's notorious now for his crimes, which he deservedly is rotting in jail for. But what people don't really realize as well is how much of a power player he was behind the scenes, especially when it came to Oscar time. The stuff that guy used to do to get his movies and his actors and filmmakers over was notorious. Really kind of vile, cruel stuff, but it was just, I guess, a part of the game, right? I mean, it's Hollywood, so people tend to do that kind of stuff. How else do you explain Shakespeare in Love defeating Saving Private Ryan at the 1998 Oscars and all the other stuff that comes with it? And of course, there's a reason why there was that compilation video that came out maybe a year or maybe a few months after the accusations against Harvey Weinstein out, of all of these celebrities thanking Harvey Weinstein from the stage as they have their Oscar or whatever award that they have, because he really did put in the work in a very kind of nefarious way to try to get his movies and his artists the awards at the end of the day. So that really put me off. The other thing that really put me off was the whole hosting fiasco. I remember that one year where Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars, and then a tweet from like 3 or 4 years ago was it a part of his stand-up set came out and people got outraged about it. I mean, the guy's a goddamn comedian. I mean, what that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to make you laugh, supposed to make you think, supposed to make you outraged. Comedians aren't supposed to be careful. They're not supposed to be censored. Sorry, they're supposed to be really kind of out there and talk, and they talk about this kind of stuff. That's what they're supposed to do. So when he got cancelled, so to speak, and then after that he was removed from hosting duties, and then he was tarnished for a little while there. Not many people came to his defense, and also when they decided not to have hosts because it was too problematic. I mean, that was a real problem for me. I didn't dig that whatsoever. And supposedly this year they're going to have a host again, but whether anyone's really going to care, I know, like, Lord knows that I don't care at all. I don't care anymore about the Oscars. That's one of the reasons. And another reason why I don't really care about the Oscars anymore is the whole new rules that they have, that which films will be in consideration, like a whole kind of checklist of things, like there has to be certain people of this ethnicity, have to be certain people of this sexuality, has to be this, that has to have that. I mean, isn't the whole point of having an award show to reward the best film? I mean, isn't that the whole point of this? And not only did they not do it before, but now they have a criteria of what should be rewarded based on some type of social, political, let's just face it, bullshit that people have to follow now to get their films up there. So if I wanted to make a movie that was kind of like The Godfather, for example, or say based in the 1930s, and it had to do with an Italian American family, if I wanted to get that film Oscar consideration, I have to follow all these rules, which means casting changes and maybe changes to a character's sexuality, etc. And from that, you'll receive consideration, which is just crap. It's sensory material is essentially what it is to hit a certain amount of woke platitudes, and I'm just not in it anymore. But having said that, we're going to talk about the nominations today because it's something really interesting kind of came up in regards to it. So I'm just going to bring them up here about the actual Academy. So, fair enough, all these kind of nominations. What can you do? It's out of our hands. The Academy people have their own, option, choices, have their own options. But this one here, Don't Look Up, receiving a Best Picture nomination. I got a real problem with this, but then again, I'm not really surprised. Don't Look Up has to be one of the, I wouldn't say one of the worst films I saw last year, but it was definitely not even close to being an average film. It was 2.5 hours of Adam McKay being self-righteous and telling everyone else that they suck in that we all deserve, to get what's coming to us because we didn't look into issues like climate change close enough. It wasn't a good film. The performances weren't that great. For some reason, Adam McKay keeps getting nominations for these movies. The Big Short was cool. Vice sucked. Don't Look Up wasn't any better, but he keeps getting nominations because his films represent what is the new kind of like social conscious movie that the Academy Awards now give their time to. Previously, it used to be like back, say, in the 1990s, that a film that had to do with, say, gay rights or civil rights, etc. That was the kind of the token film that will get the nominations for Academy Awards because it was deemed the important movie. Now the important movie is movies like this, like films that have to do with a certain social political agenda that's out there. And it doesn't matter if the film's good or not, because the film definitely isn't that good. Critics-wise, look, you can say that it's just my opinion that it's not that good, but if you're looking at a general consensus of the hundreds of movies that hundreds of critics have looked at this film and gather all their reviews like Rotten Tomatoes does, it barely scraped like 50% on there. I think the last time a movie had such a low Rotten Tomatoes score and got like a nomination for best film was what was that film? The one with Tom Hanks and Sandra Bullock, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. I think that was from like 10 years back or so. And again, that was deemed like an important movie because it had to deal with 9/11. It wasn't a good film, but it was deemed an important one, so that's why it got a nomination. And what really kind of pisses me off as well is that, several years back when the Academy Awards changed over the whole list of movies from 5 to 10, the whole point was to be able to give some type of respect or some type of acknowledgement to movies that weren't necessarily Oscar films, like a blockbuster film, which these days I guess would be the superhero movie. And that's just hasn't really been happening that much. So it's really interesting. I came across this article today that about Jimmy Kimmel. Let's see, it's here on Variety. What does it say here? Jimmy Kimmel calls out Oscars for nominating Don't Look Up over Spider-Man for Best Picture. So essentially what he says here is, how did Spider-Man not get one of the 10 nominations for Best Picture? Forget the fact the movie made $750 million. Yeah, forget that fact. It's not really about that. It was a great movie, and it was indeed a really good movie. It wasn't in the top 10 best movies of the year. There were 3 Spider-Man in it. You're telling me Don't Look Up was better than Spider-Man? It most certainly was not. And, I don't necessarily agree with Jimmy Kimmel about a lot of things, but that one I most definitely do. It wasn't that Don't Look Up isn't a great movie. And yet here we are, it's an Oscar-nominated movie. And why it's Oscar-nominated? Because it deals with an issue that the Academy are deemed worthy and important. And that's just crap. Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.